Hello, hello, hello. I am Anna Jeanette, and welcome to Story Time. So today, I couldn't say that for a second. Welcome to Story Time. So today, I have Amy Lanci with me, and we are going to be diving into one of her stories, the novel, The Untold Stories. But she believes in the magic of storytelling to really help children discover who their true selves are. So in this novel, it helps children go on a discovery to really bring them to their true selves and inner strength. And I just love the whole concept behind this book. But she's also a story brand coach and she's written other books. So we're going to get a little into that. Okay. So everybody, please help me welcome Amy Lanci. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. I think this is so exciting. So I saw your book. Tell me a little bit more about the inspiration behind your book.
Well, the book is the main character in my book is based on my daughter. And when I embarked on the journey of motherhood, I realized that what I really want by the end of my life is to leave the world a bigger, better, brighter place for children like my daughter. And I say this as someone who learns from my daughter all the time. I feel like this generation of kids are so different. They know things that we didn't know. They observe things and they are able to point things out in a way where us adults just have no idea where that came from, but it was something that we need to hear in the moment. And when I look at my daughter, I take her as inspiration for what is it possible for kids to teach us as adults, and what is possible for kids when they remember who they are. And what if they didn't have to go through this unlearning stage that a lot of us have had to do when we heal ourselves, because as we heal ourselves, we're having to unlearn things that we learned from our childhood. But what if our kids had a strong enough sense of who they are that they didn't need to go through that unlearning process? So I'm still in this experiment right now because I'm gonna see how things go, because my daughter's only 10 years old, but that's what was the inspiration behind this book, is to really tell kids, listen to that voice within you, because when you listen to that voice, it will not steer you wrong.
I love this whole concept. I love it because
Thank you.
it's so true and it really hits home because as adults, everybody's looking outside of themselves because we don't know our power. We really don't. We've been told so many generational stories of who we are as people.
Mhm.
And those magical little voices that we had when we were children were so full of imagination and beauty and believed that anything was possible. And I really think that we can learn so much, like you said, from children if we're listening. So
Absolutely.
it's important to really let their little voices be heard. So I love the concept behind this book.
Yeah,
You also have other books?
I do. I do. I
Uh,
published two other books before this.
Okay.
Yeah, and they are nonfiction communication books. The first one is called Listen Up, and that one is it delves into the secret languages of creatives, intuitives, and analytical thinkers. That there are different ways to earn their trust depending on which one you more dominantly associate with. And when you understand what they're really looking for, you're able to adjust your conversations with them in order to build a better relationship with them. So, for instance, for an analytical thinker, they are always going to look at something and wonder, does it logically make sense? And so, if you tell them something and there are holes in the story, they're going to ask those questions, not because they're trying to be judgmental, but because it's in their integrity to search out how all the dots fit together. And so, like, that's just one example of a communication strategy that's in that first book. And then the second book I wrote is called the Email Communication Bible. Again, that's a nonfiction email communication guide, talking about, how do you write emails better in a professional setting, such as, let's say you had a client who did not pay their invoice on time. How do you write an email to address something like that? or so let's say you are in a completely remote team. How do you build really good working relationships when you can't see each other face to face all the time?
I love that. I think that your work is beautiful and it's well needed. So,
Thank
do
you.
you want to read a little bit of the story to us?
Yes, I would love that.
Are you ready for a story, boys and girls? Because I am. I'm loving these stories probably more than most kids are because I love it.
Oh,
I love children's books.
I love that. No, I can tell you're so passionate about story time, and I thank you so much for allowing me to have this moment to share the first chapter of my book, The Voice Within, from my Untold Storyland series. So, chapter one is the prophecy. Queen Leora lay in her prison made of fire glass, amber, and crystal, a container that moved and shimmered like a wildfire, but was as cool as ice. She was still and lifeless, but very much alive. Her body took on the same characteristics as the chamber that held her, unmoving and frozen in time. This is how she had been for the last 50 years, and always beautiful, always sleeping, always sleeping. Today, she received the same two visitors she did every day, almost like clockwork. One was a tall Amazon with dark hair named Cora, clad in armor and leather. She wore her sword and shield at all times, always prepared for battle. She was definitely not in a good mood today. Do you expect me to believe that our fate rests in the hands of a child? A human child, no less? Cora scoffed, full of disbelief and skepticism. Well, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you, said the second visitor named Lyra. She was a shorter woman who wore a black dress adorned by a pattern of a peacock made of blue, silver, and white beads. Fairy wings trailed behind her, glistening whenever they reflected light. Despite the dire circumstances of having a comatose queen, a slightly perturbed Amazon, and shadowy forces running amok in the kingdom, Lyra still found a way to be giddy and hopeful for the opportunity to make things right. She was a muse, after all, and that's how they roll. Think about it, Cora, added Lyra. You took our armies to battle against the Black Swan's forces within our kingdom and closer to theirs. When that didn't work, you took search parties to scour the land for any clues, relics, artifacts, or spells to wake up the queen. After several tries, you finally found something that could help. A prophecy of a young girl from a far off land who will use the magic of change to wake up Queen Leora and save us all, only to scoff at it and toss it out with the trash? You, Cora, are the one who is hard to believe. Cora stayed silent, her eyes completely glued to the queen in front of her. Memories and thoughts raced through her head. The blood, sweat, and tears that made up the last 50 years were exhausting and demoralizing. Gathering the people and trying to be strong for everyone, not just because she was the queen's right hand woman and the admiral of her armies, but because she was trying to wipe away her failure. You weren't there, Lyra, said Cora. You didn't see the black swan coming right at us with her red eyes and giant black wings. I thought I had the queen safely stowed away in her chamber, protected by her spells and magic. I was happy to die at that moment, knowing that I had fulfilled my duty as her bodyguard. With a flash of anger and regret, Cora bit her lower lip and gripped her fist tightly as she relived the past. But right as I was about to strike at the black swan, it flew over me and right at the queen, who appeared out of nowhere. By Gaia's glory, how I wished I had the power to turn back time. But as you know, magic was never my specialty. Oh, Cora, Lyra cooed in a sweet and soft voice, almost like a lullaby. She raised her small and doll-like hands to touch Cora's shoulder for reassurance, but paused in mid-air before putting her hands down. Can you trust that the queen knew exactly what she was doing? That you had fulfilled your royal duty and she understood that? Perhaps. But I can't just sit there and wait for a young girl to come and save the day. You won't have to. She is already on her way here. Cora turned to Lyra with a look of disbelief, unsure of what to say or how to react. Just then, someone knocked on the door and said, Hey, is anyone there? And that's the first chapter.
I love that. That is so cool. So,
Thank
where
you.
can our young readers tune in to more of this? Where can they get this book?
This book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and lots of many places that you normally get your books. But I would say the main place is Amazon.
Okay, that's great. I think that this is wonderful for them to read. I like the imagination that's going on in here.
Thank
Um,
you.
I think that, I met with someone the other day and he was telling me a story, and it was the most imaginative way I've ever heard about a hug getting lost. And he was saying that when he goes into schools and he teaches these children to write stories, and that no two
Mm,
stories are the same, that even if
mm-mm,
you give them the same exact example, that everybody's imagination and the way they interpret things are different. And I just think that's so beautiful that we have that uniqueness, that
mm-hmm,
even in the
mm-hmm.
same situation we see something totally different, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think that's beautiful. So
Thank
tell me a
you.
little bit more about your brand story coach. What does that involve?
So I've always had a knack for finding people's stories. There are a lot of programs out there that will help someone to tell their stories, and I can do that too, and I have done that. But where I really shine is helping someone to find their story, someone who is looking to speak on a stage, someone who is looking to be a thought leader, someone who is a coach or a consultant who want to reach more people and emotionally connect with them. And to them, they may say, "Hey, I don't know which story to tell. I have many stories." And I say, "Well, let's look at all those stories. Let's see which one pops up, because most likely the one that you're pushing aside is the one that your audience resonates with the most, and you don't even realize it." So, yeah, so I look at the story as something that not only represents your brand, the core values, but something that is solid proof that you are credible, that what you offer is so valuable and will emotionally connect with your audience in a way that a resume cannot. I often tell people that a resume shows that you're qualified, but your story shows that you're the expert.
I love that. I
Thank
love
you.
that. Where were
Thank
you when I
you.
got started? I could have really used you, because I'm one of those people that have so many stories. I'm the get back up girl.
I understand that.
I love that. So where can people reach you if they want to work with you?
They can go to my website, untoldstory.enterprises.com. Or they can email me at amy@untoldstory.enterprises.com. Just one story, because we're looking for the brand story. So that's how they can reach me. Amy@untoldstory.enterprises.com, or they can go to my website, untoldstory.enterprises.com.
I think that's great. So if you could tell the young minds that are listening to tonight just one thing to really help them with their imaginations and that self-discovery you talk about, what would that be?
That's a really great question. I would tell them that what they think is their biggest challenge will end up being their greatest gift later on in life. And I say this as someone who was a speech delayed child. I didn't speak until I was 3, and for the longest time, I felt like I really could not find my voice. But what I realized many years later was because I didn't speak for so long, listening became my superpower. And so when you think about communication, it's not just about talking, it's about listening and looking out for body language and all those different nonverbal signs. And so I tell that little girl inside me every day, I couldn't have done this without you. So, so yeah, that's what I would say. The young mind today is what you think is your greatest challenge will be your greatest gift later.
I love that. That is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
So
Thank
I'm a
you.
nurse too. We deal with all the non-communication, the
Oh,
nonverbal. So I so appreciate what you just said.
yeah, you
So
guys have to
guys,
be very intuitive.
yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's session of Story Time, and thank our special guest, Amy Lanci. And once again, if you're interested in reading more of this book, please go to her website, and it will also be under this video. So, if you didn't hear it or you don't remember it, don't worry, it'll be below. Okay, guys, have a great day.